It's the show where Hawaii's newsmakers come to talk and to take your questions live. From the nation's capital to Honolulu Hale, from the state legislature to the fifth floor. We bring the experts to you and ask them what you want to know. Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Pelesuji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
Hello and good morning. Thanks for starting off your week with us. I'm Ryan Pelesuji, joined by Yanji Denise, and this is Spotlight Hawaii on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This morning, we're going to be catching up with what's happening with the rail.
That's right. We are so lucky to have Lori Kahikina, the HART CEO, on with us this morning. We always love having you on. It's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the basics, just broad strokes. We heard the mayor in his State of the City address say that this summer will be time for the public to start riding the rail. How are things looking right now in your estimation as far as that timeline, and how do you feel about the project overall?
Oh, terrific. Thank you for asking that. So there were two major things that needed to be done before we could hand the system over to our sister department, DTS. That was trial running and the hammerhead. So I've been on your folks' platform before explaining about those two items. So the trial running, there were 144 test case scenarios that needed to be done. That was the first phase. And then the second phase was going into system demonstration. And Hitachi had to be up 98.5% of that time in order to pass that second phase. So the 144 test case scenarios are PAL. And then we went into system demonstration, and we estimated about 45 to 60 days for Hitachi to hit that 98.5%, but they surprised all of us, including themselves. They got it done in 35 days on April 2nd. Thank goodness it wasn't April 1st, April Fool's Day, but they got it done on Sunday, April 2nd. And so trial running is done, except for some paperwork that needs to be submitted to us. And they've promised me by the end of April to get all that paperwork done. The second thing is the hammerheads. So there's been over 21 hammerheads on the west side that had these cracks. So all the epoxy injections is PAL. That part is complete, but there are 8 columns that need to have post tensioning done. The material arrived here. Thank goodness we averted that mini strike on the mainland. The material arrived, and the crews are already starting that work. They've already started to core drill, and we are still on schedule to finish that end of May.
And so, Laurie, when you look at just where you stand right now at this moment, how confident are you that the timeline that has been presented for the mayor that has been publicized, are you confident that the rail will be ready for ridership come that day when the mayor said that he announced during his State of the City address?
So Mayor, all leading up to his State of the City address, I mean, as far as 2 days before his speech, we're going over it, and he says, I want to say a month. And we're saying, no, please, HART's reputation, we don't want to over-promise, under-deliver, so just say summer. Just be a little bit vague, summer, because this is a major infrastructure project. Anything can go wrong, things that are out of HART's control. And so he said, okay, fine, I'll say summer. And then the split second before it came out, he said July. And I was like, I gasped because we expected him to say summer, but that's okay. He put that stake in the ground. He is a dynamic leader and coach, as you folks know. And so as soon as we got back to our offices, I wrote an email out to our 150 plus staff members. Our coach has put that stake in the ground, and we're going to meet it. We're going to make him, we're not going to make a liar out of him. So let's get this done. But we're just worried because as the material is being shipped, look, there was that mini strike. There could have been a hurricane. Something happened to the material as it gets here. It doesn't fit, but we're gonna hit that July deadline for Mayor and the community.
Wow, that is a very stressful thing, especially if he didn't discuss it with you ahead of time. I can see why you'd want a little bit of latitude with the summer deadline. as opposed to a specific month. I want to go back to the column fixes that you're talking about. I know that you said the epoxy had been injected. Now there are 8 columns, you said, that actually need more specific work. Tell us a little bit about the cost of all of that. There's been this question as to who's responsible for that ultimately. What ultimately did these repairs cost up until this point, and who's going to end up paying for it?
Good question. So I've been pretty public. Same thing with the wheel rail interface tracks. We have not had any commercial discussions with Hitachi on the wheel rail interface and with Kiewit on the hammerhead situation. So I would prefer not to talk commercial, but I can tell you Kiewit has been phenomenal. All of this work that has been ongoing right now, whether it's the epoxy, the ordering of the material, shipping here, nothing has been charged to HART. I'm not saying that in the future something might get charged to us, but right now, Kiewit is footing the entire bill, but no commercial discussions have commenced at this point.
I just want to also give our viewers a heads up. We are having some audio issues, so pardon me for looking in multiple directions. We're trying our best to produce this on the fly here to provide you all the information that Lori is presenting to us. So thank you for your patience in this matter. But Lori, going back to just the overall timeline, I mean, we talked about where this first run will go to Aloha Stadium. There is a lot of interest in beyond that, going to the airport, and we've talked about that timeline as well on prior conversations that we've had with you. Can you share a little bit more about what that looks like right now, about a possible route to the airport and when that segment might be open for riders?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually glad you brought that up because there was a discrepancy in actually the advertiser. So the reporter did not speak to us. He was tuning in to our monthly business and community meeting with STG. STG is our contractor, so they are required to have these monthly meetings. And their portion of the work is almost complete by the end of the year. That segment is not going to be open at the end of the year. So the infrastructure, the guideway, the tracks, the stations, that should be done by the end of 2023. But we still have our core systems people that need to come in. That's Hitachi. That's all of the communications back between the trains, the stations, and the rail operations center. So that segment, which to your point, it includes the airport and it goes all the way to Middle Street, is slated to be open in 2025, so 2 years from now.
Okay. And when you do have that initial ridership opening up in July, what are the projections? How many people are you actually expecting to ride the train? And I know we've talked about costs in the past, that's determined by the city, but just for everyone's, just to update us on that, what is it going to cost to ride it? And how many people do you expect to actually do so?
Sure. So those questions are really more of a DTS question, but as you folks know, Mayor is doing these town hall meetings across the island, and listening to Director Morton or Deputy Director John Nouchi, they're projecting the ridership for this first segment to be about 10,000 per day. So that's 5,000, right? Because you have the morning and the evening rush. And so it's about 10,000. And then to ride, I want to say, I heard them say $3. And it's there's going to be a cap. So the most that you could spend in a month, I want to say, is about $70. And what I've heard Deputy Director Nouchi talk about is it's one ride. So it's interchangeable between the bus and the rail. So if you have that holo card, when you're going in the one direction and it's within 2 hours, you're not paying for, let's say, $2 to get onto the bus, another $3 to get onto the rail. It's one fare for the entire direction within the 2 hours. And I want to say it's about $3.
Beyond just what's happening here with this first segment, of course, you continue to work on the segment that's here in town. What can you tell us about and update us on what's happening on Dillingham? We know that is a lot of work going on right now, and there are some people in the area who are experiencing some of the delays and some of the work that's associated with that. But can you give us a brief update on how things are going there as well?
Sure. So we have 2 contractors there. We have Coluccio, who's doing the downtown utility relocation work, and Nan is doing the Dillingham relocation work. And things are progressing pretty well. We have had some complaints from the businesses out at Dillingham. think the main concerns out there is ADA access. My deputy and I, we're on the Rick Hamada show every Friday, and a couple of people call in that, you have kupuna waiting for the bus and it's uneven, the ground, and I'm still in my brace and crutches. And so I have a whole new perspective on what it's like to be in a wheelchair, to be handicapped. And so we've made a conscious effort with Nan. Every week, once a week, we're walking it, our staff and NAN staff, to make sure that we are being ADA compliant, so that the kupuna, those in a wheelchair, they have easy access, whether they're crossing the street or getting onto the bus. And then if there's potholes, we're trying to make sure, if it's not in NAN's contract, because they haven't gotten to that section of the road. So for example, they've shut down, let's say, the Makai side, but the potholes are on the Mauka side. That's not even within their scope yet, but that doesn't matter. We want to make the area safe for the community. So we're out there filling in the potholes. So I do believe April 24th. So next week, they are going to start shifting to shut down the other 2 lanes. Instead of the Makai side, they're going to be shutting down the Mauka side. So we want your viewers to be aware of that.
This was always billed as what would be the hardest stretch of the project when it comes to just the infrastructure and getting everything prepared to bring the columns in and to bring those tracks in. What have you found through this process? Have there been any surprising with this particular stretch of road? Are things progressing to your liking? If you can just tell us how you think it's going right now in that particular stretch, since there was so much anticipation that this would be very difficult.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It is the most difficult. I almost wish they started in this section first and then go out to the country. But I understand certain reasons why decisions were made. The Rail Operations Center is out on the west side, but it is very difficult. It seems like almost every day we're running into unforeseen. We have sewer laterals that are so shallow. We ran into a water line that only has 1 inch cover. The minimum is 3 foot cover, but we have 1 inch. So every day we're running into something unforeseen. But our contractor and our designers, we're all housed right here at Ali'i to find quick solutions. And I can't thank our stakeholders enough, whether it's the city departments, HICO, Kamehameha schools, everyone they try to move as quickly as they can. We can't have NAN sitting for 3 months trying to have a redesign done. And so within 2 weeks, the stakeholders are all at the table with us trying to find quick solutions so that we can keep the contractor moving. And one thing I do want to share is going back to the Dillingham. So some concerns is the left turn, right? If people don't understand, I want to get to Wet Okole from where I'm at, but they can't turn left. It's frustrating. And people use Google Maps, and we were able to thank you to Ed Sniffen. He was able to get me the contact, because not anybody can just call Google Maps. You either need to be HDOT or DTS. And Ed Sniffen got me the contact, and literally over the weekend, they were able to redo their mapping. So if you're now going to Google Maps and you're coming from downtown, you want to get to the blood bank, you want to get to Wet Okole or to a restaurant, it routes you the proper way so that you turn right into the driveway. And then Director Morton got me the contact to the iPhone maps. So we're trying to work with them to do the same thing that Google Maps did, just to make it a little bit easier for the community out there.
And as someone who has experienced that, trying to turn left going into Costco, another familiar area, a frequent place that many would like to go, I've experienced that as well. So I can see that there is some confusion and frustration there. Beyond the Dillingham area, there continues to be concern about what happens when you get into the downtown corridor. How are things looking, projection from timeline as well as scope of work once you hit that area, knowing that you're running into some of these issues now on Dillingham? Has that prompted anything for you and the department to look forward to, knowing that there could be similar issues in the downtown area?
Actually, downtown doesn't have quite as many issues as the Dillingham corridor. So, and I'm very proud of our team. So our construction management team is working hand in hand. And like I said, our contractor, our designer, our CM is all housed here at HART, Ali'i Place. And they've worked out things that, we don't really need to do this work. So we're doing a lot of de-scoping from the downtown contract. And we do still need some approvals, whether it's with HECO or HDOT. But again, our stakeholders have been so terrific. They're looking at it, said, yeah, you know what? We don't really need to relocate that. So we're actually de-scoping some of the work from the Coluccio contract. So right now, both projects are on schedule, but it's so early in the game. So I hesitate to say that, we'll continue to be on schedule. But as things come up, for example, Coluccio does jet grouting. And it's basically building a cement wall underground to stop the groundwater from coming in because, downtown right there, the ocean is right there. And there was a cement shortage. So they were hampered for a few months, but now they're getting back on schedule. And the de-scoping is actually helping them to keep on schedule. We just got a notification today that all asphalt is coming to a standstill for 3 months because all that asphalt is going to airports, the airport runway project. So I understand that, right? That's a priority. We got to keep the airlines and the planes moving, but it adversely affects us. I am really terrified once NAVFAC contract starts. They're going to dominate all of the concrete on the island for a long time. And so that's going to adversely impact us too. So we're trying to get as much done as we can before that NAVFAC project starts.
That's so interesting because you are up against all of these external forces that I think a lot of people just don't really see. Is there a way for you, how are you trying to get ahead, or is there a way to stockpile any of this? I doubt you have a lot of storage. I mean, where can you put all that dry concrete? How do you navigate all of these issues that you're talking about?
Actually, you can't store, right? You folks see the trucks on the road, they have, let's say, 45 minutes to get from the plant to where it has to be used. So you can't store large amounts of concrete. We could store the bags, but that's really manini amount of concrete. So it's just, try to accelerate our schedule as much as we can and minimize those kind of impacts. But those things are really out of our control. So I hope the public understands that we're trying to make sure we stay on target, but there are things that we just can't control.
On target is one thing, but another thing that often people wonder about is the budget. We know that there has been variations of budgets, and this project has ballooned in overall cost and scope. What can you tell us in terms of the financing, recognizing that there are some of these unforeseen situations that have come up? Are you confident that you guys are going to be able to complete this given the budget that you have, or do you foresee having to go back and request for more funding, given where you are at now and knowing everything that you know?
Yeah, so that's a difficult question. So our next big procurement, one of the last largest ones, is City Center Guideway and Station. And our budget for that is actually $1.1 billion with about 200 million in contingency. But the climate that we're bidding in right now is very difficult. And so that's another thing I'm terrified of. We just put out the first phase of that procurement on, I believe, April 4th. And that's for requests for qualifications from the different bidders. And then we want to go out with the second phase, which is actually up to a certain percentage of design. This is going to be a design build, and that is going to be let out in a few months and award by the summer of next year. So I am cringing to see what those numbers come in from the industry, because if it comes in too high, it's a concern. It's a concern. And it's not like I can just go to the feds, hey, our numbers came in high, I need more money. That's not how it works. We're going to have to find some cost saving measures in order to award that contract.
When you start to explore any kind of cost savings, I mean, we've already cut the rail, right? It's ending earlier than initially anticipated, and that's largely due to cost. What are some areas that there is wiggle room given, the construction climate we're in? Also, borrowing costs are so high right now. I mean, where do you have any latitude there?
I think the biggest difference here, because we have gone out for this procurement at least 2 or 3 times prior to me getting here, the contractor has a lot of good ideas that maybe we haven't thought of. So in the past, I believe HART was not open to value engineering. And so if you look at our current stations, the 9 on the west side, they are very elaborate. And so I'm open to hearing from the contractors, maybe we can simplify them, cut the cost down. Maybe the way the guideway was built on the west side, you have a better way of doing it that could save costs. So, and also saving, sharing the risk. Because if we put all of the risk on the contractor, that balloons the price as well. So just working more collaboratively with the contractor, I believe we can help bring some of the costs down.
When you first got into this position, you had to make some pretty tough decisions. You had some cutbacks within HART and had to reorganize and reshape the department in which you're leading. I just want to get a sense from where you're at now in your leadership role, how things are, how things have evolved, how you've been able to manage with the staff and personnel that you have, given that you had to make some cutbacks overall. And do you foresee having to make any additional changes on the administrative and staff side in order to help supplement the overall project as a whole?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the temperature is much better than when I first came in. It was, I mean, it's still stressful. This job is still stressful, but just coming in the beginning and getting constantly beat up. I mean, everywhere you turn, just having darts thrown at you. I feel, and so I believe my staff too, the temperature is much different. I remember when I first started, one of my staff, I did these mini safaris to meet with the different staff members so that they could see me as a human, not as a CEO executive, because it can be intimidating. And one staff member said, I don't like to admit that I work at HART because I don't want to get the darts thrown at me. I don't want to get questioned. But now, fast forward, he's proud. He's proud to admit that he works here and that we're almost ready to hand over the first segment. So I think public sentiment has changed. We still have a long way to go. But I think you folks, the media, has been a lot more friendlier and not, throwing so many barbs at us. And I think that the temperature of the community is much better. I think I've mentioned before, at least once a week, someone from the public will come up to me, whether I'm at a restaurant, a grocery store, Costco, and just say thank you. Thank you for turning this project around. And so the stress is not as high as when I first came in. And to your question about staffing, we will have to ramp up. So I did about 48% of the HART staff, we did cut. The consultants, all of them, the top, 30% we cut, but it was a perfect time for it because we were in a lull. The only construction going on really was the second segment, Airport Guideway Station. But now we're starting to ramp up for City Center Guideway Station. So we will have to have additional city staff and additional consultants, but not, I don't believe, to where it was when I first got here. We have about 50 city staff. I would say we maybe need another 20 eventually. And then same thing with our construction management team. But I don't think as large as when I first came in.
I want to go back to that cost savings. One of the things that had been talked about was perhaps eliminating some of the stations because they are relatively close together when you get into the downtown area and beyond. Is that, could that be considered as well? Because we know that the stations are expensive, perhaps leaving a footprint so that you could perhaps build a station at a later date, but then not build one for now, if you will. Is that part of the conversation?
Absolutely could be part of the conversation. And to your point, that I'm going to call it just a stub out. We have a stub out so that if a contractor can come in later and just go ahead and attach it. So that's one of the things we're talking with the contractors, that the way it was built on the west, they were integrated. The stations and the guy were integrated. You could not do one without the other. And HART was not even entertaining that idea of separating them so that if you have to do cost measures and come back in another year or so, you could. But that is absolutely something that we would have to look at if we don't have the funds. It's not what we would like to do. That's the last resort. But if we have no choice, we have no choice.
Our time is almost up, but we did want to just allow you to just briefly share your thoughts about where you're at right now with the project. Of course, a lot of anticipation with this ridership being finally able to happen and to take place in a few months. And just your overall thoughts about where you're positioned as the CEO leading this project as you head into this next few quarters of this year.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting. This is a long time coming for HART and HART staff. You know, many of them have been here since the beginning, and to hand over the first segment to DTS and get riders on there, get excited. And as I mentioned, 2 more years, they can go all the way to Middle Street. It's not ideal, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And I just, you know, I thank the public and the community for being so patient. I know it's been very, very frustrating, but I think we're on the right path now to do things expeditiously and prudently and get us all the way. We have to get to Ala Moana. We have to get to UH. And so, but baby steps. Let's get the first segment open, 2, 3, and then we'll get to Ala Moana and UH eventually.
Okay, HART CEO Lori Kahikina, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ryan, always great to hear from her. It has been a few months since we've had that opportunity, and we know she's a very busy woman, so we really appreciate her giving us the update today. Good to hear that those 144 test scenarios all came in actually earlier than expected, and they've met everything that they need to do in that regard. They are still fixing some of the concrete issues they had with those cracks there. She said about 8 columns that still need more remediation, and so they're working on that as we speak. And it was interesting to hear how she had really pushed the mayor to say, give us a little bit of wiggle room, say summer, don't give a specific month. The mayor making a, game time decision in that speech and setting putting a stake in the ground in July.
Yeah, you could hear her say that she was a little caught off guard because she wanted to be a little more broad, but also said that served as a motivation for her and her team to ensure that this is something that is ready for July. And she sounds pretty confident with everything that is going on, and given where the state of rail is and how long it's taken to get to this point, that it will happen. She also clarified some of the reports that may have come about the airport segment, saying that while the airport station will be done by the end of this year, the entire segment will likely take a few more years, because that will essentially take the second segment to Middle Street. And so the train basically cannot just stop at the airport. It needs to continue on. And that will take a little bit more time. And so it will be a few more years before those living residents and visitors who are coming from the west side of the island will be able to take the rail all the way to the airport.
That July segment, though, she did say they're expecting about 10,000 riders a day. That's their conservative estimate at this point. And of course, that's really the city making those estimations, not HART itself, because once this segment is complete, they hand over the keys and the responsibility. The city will set the price for the rides and also figure out just how many people are riding it. But, 5,000 in the morning, she said, 10,000 in the evening and afternoon, looking at roughly around $3 per ride, and saying that can be combined with a bus fare. And so you don't have to pay twice. So that'll be welcome news to a lot of folks. And, interesting to hear about what's happening along Dillingham and the preparations they're making for downtown. The idea of a water main being 1 inch under the road, that's not something that anyone likes to see. And I'm sure you heard her say it every day. They're coming into a new challenge.
But she does sound confident and really pleased with the work that their team is doing, saying that they are troubleshooting every single day in their offices, trying to find ways to remedy all of these last minute or unforeseen problems along Dillingham, and also saying that downtown should be a lot easier than this corridor of Dillingham, which also has seen a number of frustrations with reroutes and drivers trying to navigate through that area. You heard from her saying that she's had to contact Google Maps. They're also in contact with iPhone to just make sure that those who are using those types of devices to find specific locations are going in the right route, because the traditional route of going down Dillingham and trying to turn left into one of those establishments while heading towards Eva is not allowed at this point in time because of the rail construction that is happening. And so they continue to find ways to navigate. Really incredible to think of all the different things and situations and scenarios that she's having to troubleshoot, going all the way to Google Maps to make sure that these types of situations are remedied.
Yeah, and also interesting to hear about what she's anticipating, and a lot of trepidation when it comes to the downtown and beyond, looking at some of those contracts that she's going to have to sign to build the segments beyond that. And really, you heard a lot of cost concerns that are coming up and some adaptations that they may have to do, really simplifying the stations or perhaps skipping a few of them in the short term, just so they can get the rail built to where it needs to be and meet their FTA requirements for the money that they did get from the federal government. So always a lot to talk about with Lori Kahikina. On Wednesday, we are going to be talking to someone who's also leading a big building project, and that is Chad Keone-Farias. He leads the School Facilities Authority. They're the folks who are building all the preschool classrooms right now. He is working hand in glove with the lieutenant governor and really focusing on where these classrooms can be stood up. We heard from the lieutenant governor they're going to be opening some this August ahead of schedule. So we're going to get some of the information about the nuts and bolts of where these preschools are being built, how they're doing it, and how they're going to spend the money according to the legislature's schedule.
Yeah, we look forward to that conversation. We hope you'll join us here on Wednesday for another episode of Spotlight Hawaii. Until then, take care and aloha.
Aloha.